Bailey, and it is a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship today. I'd like to start by congratulating my right honourable friend for the very eloquent speech that he's just made, setting out, I think, the key issues that we're here to address today. And I just wanted to say to the right honourable member for East Devon that he's right, that we do live in a prosperous country, and we all know as politicians that politics is all about choices. And it's about the choices that are being made at the moment about social care that I think are the wrong choices, and we need to revisit the decisions that have been made by the government, put pressure on the government to think again. So in my contribution, I want to spend a few minutes talking about the human cost of the financial pressures that my own council is facing and how that's impacting on individuals, on care staff, and on the care sector generally. But I do want to emphasise again some of the points that my right honourable friend made about the demographic makeup of Hull and what's happened to our funding since 2010. We are the third most deprived local authority in the country, first of all. And the cuts that we've seen since 2010 equate to £548 per head by 2020. By 2020, an estimated £40 million will have been cut from Hull's social care budget, and its central grant will have been reduced by 55%. And I'm going to be political here. I know that the right honourable member for East Devon said that we should take the politics out of this, but I'm going to say this. In the most recent analysis, Labour councils have faced 5 times higher cuts than Tory councils. But even these figures don't tell us the whole story. From now until 2020, the Council expects that the cost of its social care services will increase by £25 million. Even with the social care precept, Better Care Fund and the Adult Social Care Grant, we will not be able to cover that. Now, Hull Council, as my right honourable friend has said, is doing its very best in these difficult circumstances. It's being innovative and trying to integrate with health as much as it can. But what this really means, this financial situation the council's in, is that individual men and women in the city of Hull are not getting the care that they deserve to receive. And I want to tell you about a local constituent, Joyce Hensby. Now, Mrs Hensby has a range of medical conditions, which means she relies on carers to come into her own home. So, for example, every morning she needs a 30-minute visit from a carer to get her out of bed, to shower and dress her and make her breakfast. Now, the staff who come to do this are hard-working and dedicated people, but unfortunately they're working in an impossible situation. Joyce's care is funded by Hull City Council and provided by a private provider, Direct Health. In June last year, the Care Quality Commission judged their service as requiring improvement. They said that they did not have sufficient numbers of suitably qualified, competent, skilled and experienced staff and did not have the appropriate systems in place to ensure that people received the services that had been agreed with them. Some care coordinators were being forced to do 2 jobs at once. Some care packages were being given back to Hull City Council because there were insufficient staff. Now, staff have told Mrs Hensby that they are paid by the minute. If they can't provide evidence that they've been fully occupied for the full half hour in the morning that they care for her, their pay is docked. The CQC raised severe concerns about this pay-by-the-minute system during their inspection. And some staff seem to be working 16-hour days, from 7 a.m. till 11 p.m. Many have been asked to opt out of the Working Time Directive when they started with Direct Health. And Direct Health don't fund the transport costs. And so sometimes carers spend large parts of their days rushing between appointments but not getting paid for that. Now, as you would expect, Mrs Hensby likes consistent care with people she knows and trusts. She doesn't want strangers every day helping her with some of the most intimate and personal care. But staff turnover is extremely high because of the pressure on those staff and their low wages. And in the past 3 months alone, she has lost 5 carers with whom she had built up a good relationship. So every day, this constituent, Mrs Hensby, is left worried about who will be coming through her front door to help her. So that's the reality of what the crisis in local council funding looks like on a day-to-day basis in many homes in Hull. But I also just want to talk a little bit about a visit I made to a residential care home in Hull. And this was shortly after the government had made their living wage announcement, which of course is to be welcomed. But the owners of that residential care home, who've run the home for many years, they have a very loyal and long-serving staff group, and the home does have glowing reviews, said to me they were really concerned about the future financial viability of that care home. The council in Hull pay £416.55 a week for an older person in residential care. The majority of people in Hull in care homes are not self-funders, as my right honourable friend said. Only 7% in the city are self-funders compared to 45% nationally. So that means those care homes are reliant on the amount of money that Hull City Council pay. They can't generate extra income for themselves. Now, I think it's worth pointing out that if you book into a travel lodge in Hull for 7 days, the cost of that is £456.75 a week. And obviously that comes without any of the residential care home support that's provided if you're in a care home. So £416 is what these care providers get from the council. And the social care preset, which my right honourable friend talked a lot about, does not even make up for the costs of the new national living wage policy. So in Hull, that 1% increase in the council tax will raise just 2.1 million in a year, whereas the living wage cost for Hull adult social care is 3.5 million a year. So we've got quality private care providers who say they're under enormous pressure to provide a good service. They want to provide a good service, but with a very limited income. And they're expected to meet these new obligations, such as the living wage, on top. And I think we'll see many more of these care home providers, the good ones, the ones who, like the one I visited, who say they just cannot continue. It's not possible. So finally, I just want to move on to commenting on Surrey, because I think it would be remiss of me not to. Just to recap, Surrey County Council is the 150th most deprived local authority in England, and Hull, as I said, is the 3rd most deprived local authority. Now, Surrey County Council leader David Hodge made a comment which I just want to read out in relation to social care. He said, "I believe we have a duty to look after people. We've cut £450 million already. We've squeezed every efficiency and we can do no more. I am sick and tired of politicians not telling the truth. Surrey people have the right to know, and I am not going to lie." And that was obviously in relation to social care. Now, for hundreds of councils up and down the land, in more deprived areas of the country, these comments resonate even more than perhaps in Surrey, because the pressures in Hull are even more severe. Yet when council officials in Hull, as my right honourable friend said, did the right thing and tell the truth and raise the issue, it seems to fall on deaf ears. And it's really sad that they don't have that direct line to Tory special advisers that Surrey obviously did. And I do think the plight of our vulnerable residents is going unrecognised by the government, because perhaps they're not in the stockbroker belt, so they're not so immediately obvious to the ministers who are making decisions in this Parliament. Now, Neil Kinnock, many years ago, warned about playing politics with people's jobs. And I think failing to fund social care is playing politics now with people's lives. And we do know that there's academic research that shows that the cuts to social care and the problems in the NHS have led to 30,000 excess deaths in 2015. And I think the Minister does need to reflect on that. So I would urge him to really consider that. I just want to raise one last thing, which is it's not that there aren't proposals about how you plug the gap. And I do think the Minister should listen to some of the suggestions that are being made. For example, Unison have pointed out that whilst business rate receipts to central government have gone up, the government is not allocating this extra money to councils. in 2017-18 there will be an additional 6.6 billion. And if they gave just 1.8 billion of this unallocated money to councils like Hull, it would go some way to dealing with the pressures in social care. My very last comment is I believe that there is now a time for a radical rethink about this whole area. In 1948, there was a view that we needed to set up a national health service that we all contributed to and that we could all access. I think the time is now for a national health and care service to be set up from general taxation that will stop this postcode lottery around the country and will ensure that some of the people who, for example, fought in the Second World War, who have helped build this country up after 1945, get the kind of care that we all want to see them receive in our communities.
Yeah.